of Business Development for Hardwoods Unlimited. We are going to talk about a really interesting and unique investment opportunity today, and not only investment in agriculture, but also an investment in yourself. And, you know, I think regardless of what your political views are, I think we can all agree that there is just a lot of craziness going on in the world right now. And a lot of us are looking for plan Bs. We're looking for ways to diversify ourselves, to make sure that we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, as we've heard that saying before. And so by looking at alternative opportunities, looking outside of our home countries, it really helps us to accomplish what I think many of us are looking for. So in this presentation today, we're going to talk about ownership of teak hardwoods. You are going to be the owner of land, teak hardwoods land, and through this ownership, you're able to accomplish so many different aspects. You're able to accomplish that generational wealth stewardship. You're able to accomplish that plan B, or getting a residency, if that perhaps has been on your mind, and just that general country and investment diversification. So with that, we are going to get started. And how I like to begin this presentation is asking you what your goals are. We're all on this call for a reason, and some of us may be on here for reasons that you see on the screen. Maybe you're looking for security. You're looking for a secure investment. You're looking to park your money somewhere that you know is safe, is going to grow, continue to grow regardless of what's going on in the world today. Maybe you're looking for diversification. And for diversification, it can be one of two ways. You can have diversification when it comes to asset classes. Maybe ownership of teak is something that is so totally different than the usual stocks and bonds, and that's good. You want that diversification. Or maybe you're just looking for country diversification. I know many of us, and for those of you who have invested before, we do tend to invest in places that we know, or places that we've been, or in things or concepts like that stock market. So having this asset diversification, country diversification is really quite important. In addition to that, why teak and timber more generally have been such a remarkable asset class is because of this concept of generational wealth stewardship, leaving a legacy. As we talk about teak, you're going to hear that it is a 25-year harvest cycle, a 25-year harvest cycle. Although we have trees that are growing and they're different ages right now, so you don't have to wait that full 25 years. When you go into an investment such as hardwoods, you are thinking for the long term. You're thinking for yourself. You're thinking for your future generation, the generation after that, and continuing down the line. And this is truly why a lot of the ultra wealthy have decided to invest in timber. Maybe you're looking for that freedom or that plan B. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, there's just a lot of craziness going on all over the world. And having options, having an insurance in your back pocket really is a critical way for you to mitigate a lot of those uncertainties that a lot of us have. Imagine being able to know that you are a permanent resident somewhere, you're able to hop on a plane, be there, live there legally, never be kicked out because you don't have that perpetual traveler status. You are there as a permanent resident. And through ownership of these timber farms, you are able to apply for the residency in the countries in which these farms are. So who we are ECI Development, we're Hardwoods Unlimited. ECI Development is the development side of our company. Hardwoods Unlimited is the agricultural side of our company. Between these two companies, we have been operating in Latin America for about 2.5 decades at this point. And the real pioneers, the real visionaries behind Hardwoods Unlimited and our teak farms were from a group of 6 guys, Mike Cobb being one of them, who were looking for opportunities to help steward their wealth. And they have kids, and they were thinking about the kids and the great-grandkids and the great-great-great-grandkids after that. And they just really had this unique vision of, hey, why don't we start a farm? And as they started to explore more and more opportunities, they learned about teak, and then from there started looking at different places to grow teak, ultimately deciding on Panama. And from there, they started their first farm. This was over 20 years ago. That farm is nearing maturation at this point. It is nearing that harvest in just a couple of years. So we're really excited to see this program grow. Initially, this program really started in 2013, where we allowed people the option to own teak. and then pair that up with the residency programs. And that really started as a result of President Martinelli, the then president of Panama, who said, if you invest $10,000 in land and you're from one of these friendly nations countries, there are about 50 on the list, then you're able to get permanent residency in the country. So we initially surveyed a handful of lots, about 75% of our lots at our older farm, which is sold out at this point. And then from there, we saw more and more people, more savvy investors were looking at the opportunity from that investment perspective. They like the numbers. They like being able to ladder the payouts by owning different aged parcels. And so we're really excited to be able to offer this opportunity and continue to replant and offer more options for folks like you. So you'll see Jacobo there on the screen, Jacob, but Jacobo works with Heo Forestal. They are our management company. They are top notch. You're going to hear more about them in the presentation. But a fun fact is that Jacobo was actually the fellow who helped us to find our very first farm over 20 years ago in Panama. He still works with the organization Heo Forestal, who manages the Teak for us. With us today, we also have a very special guest, Betsy Rosenlind. Betsy, you've been with us for about 5 years at this point, right?
5 years in January.
Wow, my gosh, time is flying. And so Betsy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you? I know that you're also going through the residency process in Panama now. What prompted you to do that? And anything else you'd like to share with the group here?
Yes, thank you so much, Rachel. Great to have everybody on here. I see lots of familiar names, so thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Like Rachel said, my name is Betsy Rosenlund. I am the Director of Pre and Post Sales. So at any point during your process, you will be in touch with me at some point to talk about Teak, which is super exciting. I am a Teak owner at our farm, and like Rachel mentioned, I started my residency process in January, and hopefully if everything continues to go well with borders reopening, I'll be able to get down to Panama towards the end of this year and pick up my permanent residency card. I don't currently live in Panama. I do live full-time in Belize, but Panama is definitely a place that I could see myself living. It has a lot going on as far as geography, things to do. So that's one of the reasons that I decided to do the residency. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about Teak ownership, about Panama, about residency, and look forward to talking with more of you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Betsy. And then there I am, Rachel Jensen, Vice President of Business Development for Hardwoods Unlimited. I think that picture was taken back in 2012 or 13 when we first went out to the farm with one of our first groups. So it's definitely aged a little bit. The trees are definitely bigger than what you see there in the picture, at least in the mature farm. But it's really neat, as Betsy mentioned, to see everybody's name on here, to see your interest, and whether you are looking at this opportunity strictly from an investment perspective, maybe residency is your primary goal, being able to connect the two and have a great opportunity for you. Like Betsy, I live in Belize full-time, did the residency through this program specifically about 5 years ago in Panama, and decided, similar to Betsy's, maybe I want to live there at some point, maybe I don't want to live there at some point, but the residency associated with the ownership is just so easy to obtain, so easy to maintain. Now it's only having to visit Panama one day every 6 years. So figured, why not have it? Why not have it in the back pocket? And if life leads me to Panama, well, at least I'm prepared already. So let's get started. Before we jump into all of the finer details, what I want to do is recap the opportunities for you, and then from there we'll jump into the specifics. So we have a handful of different farms available. In Panama, we had a mature teak farm that sold out at this point, but we also have a teenage 15-year-old teak farm. Now, this is a great option for people who are looking for older teak. We know that teak is a 25-year harvest cycle. And with the teenage teak, that means we only have 10 years until the big harvest. So what's really neat about teak is that you have these thinning payouts that happen at age 18, 20, and then the big harvest at age 25. So if you decide to own the teenage teak, the 15-year-old teak, 3 years from now is a thinning, 2 years after that is another thinning, and then 5 years after that is the big harvest. So you don't really have to wait much time. And then in addition to that, we have the newborn teak. This is in Panama as well. This is the full 25-year cycle. So this is the thinning at age 12, 18, 20, and then the big harvest at age 25. And what I have found a lot of folks tend to do is own maybe one of each or own a couple of the different farms, because then it gives that laddered profit, because we do have the Teak payouts at 12, 18, 20, and 25. If you get the different aged parcels, then you have payouts staggered throughout that harvest period. So just something to bear in mind there as well. And then in addition to that, at our Grand Pacifica property in Nicaragua, we have newborn teak. It's actually about to turn 1 next month in October. So we will be seeing a price increase for that. But before this call, I was on the phone with our VP of operations in Nicaragua, and she was telling me that over the past couple of weeks, they've actually been planting the next farm, which at this point is 0 years old. So we have one farm that's about to be 1, and we have another farm that has just been planted. So we will be certain to talk to you about those opportunities throughout the throughout the presentation here. But something, again, to bear in mind is ownership of maybe a parcel at Grand Pacifica, maybe a parcel in Panama. These are fully titled ownership opportunities. And what that does is it gives you that country diversification, which I know a lot of us are looking for as well. So let's even just jump back to the beginning. Why is it that timber is so popular? Why is that ownership of timber farms is so popular? Why have the ultra savvy and ultra wealthy been investing in timber for a really long time? Well, the first one here is giving back to Mother Nature. And what's really neat about our farms is that they are certified reforested. And I don't have these details written down in the presentation, so just take your pen and write it down on your paper here. Is in Panama, as reforestation benefits, you don't have any property tax and you don't have any income tax in Panama on your yield. So those are 2 big benefits for being reforested property. In addition to that, in Nicaragua, we've done a lot of work with the forestry department of the country, and we were able to get taxes exonerated. So it went from about 30-something% to 2%. So really big benefits there as well for being a certified reforested property. But what that means is we are committing to replanting. So this is something that I do like to mention, because we do hear all the time about deforestation, illegal forestry that's happening. All these trees are being cut down and nothing is being replanted. When we purchased the lands that we did, it was all pasture at that point. And so we're really excited to be able to contribute to this reforestation within the countries that we're working in. But you're giving back to Mother Nature. And for many of us, it's very reassuring to know that when we're owning something, we are contributing to a cleaner and greener future. So the second reason why we're seeing a lot of people are owning timber is because there's a big demand for it, yet the supply is down. Now, regardless of what investment it is that you're looking at, many of us want to make sure that, number one, there's a market for it, and number two, if the supply is down, even better, because as the demand is higher, we know what that does to prices and also to folks who want it. There's a lot of demand for it. So we have been studying the market for, quite a bit of time now. We do have our older farms, started researching it even before that. But what we have found is that teak is being harvested at a rate of 8 to 12 times faster than it is being replanted. So let me highlight that again. Teak is being harvested at a rate of 8 to 12 times faster than it is being replanted. So what that means is that there is a big demand for it, but the supply is minimal. And what we have seen over the years is that the demand for fine hardwoods continues to increase as the population increases. That's probably not a surprise to many people on the line. As more people are in the world, more people who want fine hardwood, no surprise. Now, when you're also looking at an investment, it's important to know who it is that's going to buy it. And so when we were studying the market, what we really wanted to understand is who were the biggest consumers of teak and why. So on the chart here, you'll see these countries that are expected to be the most populous by 2100. It's probably not a surprise to you that India and China are at the top of the list. So India and China are also the 2 biggest consumers of teak. And why is that? Well, ownership of teak and teak products is seen as a luxury. It's also seen as being higher in the social status. Teak, because it is such a nice hardwood and it is expensive, there's a lot of money that is in it. And so a lot of people like owning teak because it is durable, because it's going to last for a really long time. But if you have the teak flooring in your house, for example, or if you have posts and beams that are made out of teak in your house, you're just seen as being more elite. wheat. And so India and China, the two countries that are projected to be the most populous, are also the countries that are buying the most amount of teak. Now, I do want to stop here for a moment because I don't have a slide on this, but I know a few of you on the line, we've had the chance to chat about it, is that it's great to know that we have all of these external buyers of teak. That's great. We want to know that. That's really important as we're putting together the business plan. But what's really neat is that even within the countries that we work in Panama and Nicaragua, we've been able to build a market there. And so because we have the real estate development side of the organization, what we're doing is we'll be implementing teak features into the houses, into the tiny homes, into the developments that we're working on. And so what happens is that the lumber, the finished product from Hardwoods Unlimited, gets sold to ECI Development at the market price, and we know that there's going to be a demand for it as we continue to build. And we're going to talk about the features of teak that really make it such a desirable hardwood and why people are still putting it in their homes after more than 100 years of being around. But I don't want to spoil that yet. We're going to get to that. In addition, understanding the teak market. So understanding the value of teak as well. So it's probably not a surprise to you that plantation teak has more value than teak that's growing naturally in the forest. And the reason for that is that plantation teak, when planted, is planted with the intention of harvesting it and selling it. So there's more care that is being done. There's more management that's being done, making sure that the trees are growing straight, making sure there are no extra branches on the sides, making sure that everything is being done properly. Whereas you'll see teak trees growing on the side of the road in Panama, but they tend to have Ys on the trunk. And that's not really a viable piece of wood when you're bringing it into the lumber industry. When you go to Home Depot, you get lumber that's flat. That's what they're selling. And so you want to get trees that are as straight as possible. And in order to do that, you do want to have your trees in a plantation. So we've seen that plantation teak prices have increased at an average about 5.5% per year since 1972. 5.5% per year since 1972. Now, for those of you who are interested and are seriously looking at this opportunity, maybe you haven't been in touch with us yet, but for those of you who have, you've most likely seen the business plan at this point. And in the business plan, you're going to see a couple of charts. And within those charts, the return on investment charts, and within those charts, we give you a couple of different projections based on the wood prices. And so we do not factor in this 5.5% increase per year in those prices. I just wanted to make that clear, as I know some of you are going through the business plan now. And in addition to that, we're seeing that there is a huge demand for teak, but the supply has been low. And one of the reasons for that is because teak was banned. The exportation of teak was banned in the 4 countries where teak is grown naturally. So India, Laos, Indonesia, and Myanmar, they placed logging bans on the natural forest due to the overlogging of the naturally growing trees. So as we know anyway, the naturally growing trees are probably not as great as plantation growing trees, but there was a lot of that was happening because the wood still has significant value to it. So the third reason why a lot of folks are deciding to own timber is because it's been producing above average returns, and it really is safe. It's one of those sort of investments where it's a hard asset, so you're able to go there and hug it. And what's really neat about teak, and I don't think I have this part written down either, but what's really neat about teak is that, let's say it comes time to harvest. Maybe the market's a little low. What we're able to do is let the trees continue to grow. We'll say, all right, let's wait another 6 months, and then 6 months, and we'll see what the market is doing. Well, during that 6-month period, the trees are literally just growing in value because they're growing in size. And as there's more size, there's more board feet. So that's really neat too. And I do like to point that out because when we're thinking about ownership of agriculture or timber, we want to know about the trees. And let's say if you're invested in an apple orchard, for example, if there's a blight or if there's no market for the apples that year, then you are going to be losing your entire crop for that season. You're not going to make any money from that season. But if you're letting the timber, the teak specifically, continue to grow, it's literally just growing in values. But let's talk about the above average returns. So what we have seen from Timberland Investments is that timber has continued to outperform the S&P 500 by nearly 50%. And, when I'm talking to a lot of you and a lot of you are invested in the stock market and you're looking for alternative investments and alternative options, you want to get out of the stock market. You're looking for that hard asset. You don't want to have to sit in front of your computer all day and wonder if the stock market's going to go up or down or wait for it to dip and then get that notification and tell. I mean, you don't want to have to do anything like that. The Teak just literally continues to grow. Here's a chart from the Eagle Daily Investor that showed an investment of $10,000 in 1971 that over a 40-year period morphed to about $1.5 million. Now, I do want to highlight something here. I said about 40 years, an initial investment of 10 years grew to about $1.5 million. So when you're thinking about ownership of timber, I really challenge you to think about this very differently than you've looked at your other investments before. I know many of you have ownership of real estate. Let's say you're a real estate investor. You have the monthly rentals. You have the vacation rentals. You're used to income coming in on a very regular basis. Now with timber, because we have the thinnings at age 12, 18, 20, and the big harvest at age 25, you're not getting those monthly checks. Instead, you're getting income spread throughout that 25-year period. And so this is important, and really understanding that it is a 25-year market will really help as you're going through your investment strategy. And having that diversification again of time is really an important aspect as well. You have diversification of time to maturation of your investments, diversification of country, diversification of asset classes. This is one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Steve Sugaroon. He's an economist. And he said, trees grow through recessions, they grow through wars, they grow through stock and real estate crashes. They grow through everything. They give you built-in investment growth that isn't guaranteed with a stock. And from 2008 to 2012, one of the toughest years in the history of the stock market, we saw that the trees just continue to grow. And this goes back to that point where, if let's say 2010 was the year that we were going to harvest, but maybe there was a little bit of a downfall in the teak prices, well, then what we could do is just let the trees continue to grow. And as they grow, like we said, they're literally growing in size and growing in value. So for a really long time, timber ownership has been reserved for the ultra wealthy, the top 1%. And the reason being is that what they would do is invest in large tracts of land. They would plant and they would harvest, plant, harvest, plant, harvest, keep it in the family for years. But as you can see here on the screen, they're buying millions of acres. Many of us don't necessarily have the financial resources to buy millions of acres. And when you're starting a farm, you really do need to have a large quantity of space. You need to have large acreage because that's also great because you have more volume when you're going to sell in the future. So here, John Malone, Ted Turner, 2 million plus acres invested in timber. What's also quite interesting I saw is that the endowment funds, Northwestern is one of them, Harvard's another, they have a significant percentage of their portfolio in timber. And when I say significant, 10, 15, 20% of their portfolio in timber. And that's important to know too, is you don't want to put your entire portfolio in timber, you do want to diversify it. But we have a whole list of other folks that have invested in timber before, but I thought endowment funds was pretty neat as well. Other Forbes 400 owners, again, hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the timber that they have. They're buying those large tracts of land so that they can keep it in the family for generation. They're passing down this wealth and ensuring that it continues over the years. And I think, for a lot of these ultra wealthy, how they see this is it's a generational wealth stewardship vehicle. They have it for themselves, the next generation, the generation after that, the generation after that. And let's say you have one kid in there that really wants to get the latest and greatest yacht, and at the time of harvest, he takes that money and buys the yacht. Well, you're going to be replanting anyway. At least you didn't lose the entire investment. And that's not true for a stock or bond. If that kid wanted to buy the yacht, he would liquidate the stock and then from there buy the yacht and not have that stock anymore. So with the trees and with timber, you just continue to replant, you continue to reforest and do it again for generations. And so I was really excited when in 2013, we were able to open this timber opportunity open to, folks more like you and me, folks who don't have the $300, $400, $500 million to invest in land. And these are a few of your fellow owners who come out to the farm. We do regular plantation and farm visits. And we'll be happy to let you know when those dates are. But these are folks who've come down and seen the farm and seen the trees. And we have Dirk there in the middle, who's officially a tree hugger at this point, which I think is pretty neat. You're able to come down and hug your trees, and having that hard asset, I think is very beneficial for a lot of us. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite my colleague, Betsy Rosalind, to jump in and tell us a little bit more about teak, why it is so valuable, why there is such a market for it. And perfect, Betsy, I think you should be able to change the slides there. Perfect, I see your mouse going. Can you move it all right, Bets? Yep, perfect, you got it. Or I can move it for you if it's getting a little finicky. And I can't.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was having trouble unmuting myself, but glad we figured that out. Okay.
No problem. I'm going to go back here one slide for you.
Yes. Okay, so Rachel mentioned a lot of great reasons about why ownership of timber is super important, is a great way to diversify. But one of the things we haven't talked about is, why did we choose teak? There are so many other great hardwoods out there. Why did we choose teak? And one of the reasons that it's been around for centuries and it has proven its value and its worth. It is an exceptionally hard, durable, and oily wood. If we have any folks who are boaters, you'll know that it's used in a lot of decking on boats and yachts because it can withstand those harsh environments. It's also, whoop.
Sorry.
It is also,
sorry, I think my mouse is going a little wonky over here.
Another thing is that after age 3, the teak trees become resistant to insects, termites, fungus, rot, fire, and other sort of natural disasters that you might think of when you're thinking of investing in timber. It's used in a lot of fine furniture and outdoor furniture, especially, like Rachel said, in countries like India and China, where it is seen as a status symbol. And like we talked about before, there is a lot of value for ships and boat builders, because the teak can withstand the wind, the rain, the heat. It just needs a quick coat of oil and it's back to looking shiny and brand new quite easily. Like we said, with boats, if you're familiar with Chris Craft, they have their own trademark teak. And these boats, you know, are several thousands of dollars. So you're definitely paying for quality there. And for folks who can't necessarily afford their own $90,000 yacht, you can go on sites like Wayfair or Overstock.com and find things like this Adirondack teak chair and footstool, which is, you know, on sale for $793. Or or for something a little bit smaller, maybe a teak shower mat, $243. Or I know this is Rachel's favorite item, the decorative teak horse, 25% off. It's still $2,900. So there is value in even those little bits of teak, like Rachel said, the thinnings. This is where the thinnings go to. They create things that you can have in your home, decorative pieces for your living room, bathroom, or outdoors.
And, you know, one quick story I want to jump in here with is, I think this was actually quite funny. So we were in Argentina scouting out some new property. This was about a year ago. And I had a fellow who's listened to the teak presentation before, and we got started on teak and talking about it. And he goes, I really liked the presentation, you know, great information, really understood the teak market. He goes, but you had one inaccuracy in your presentation. I'm, you know, running through the slides mentally, and I'm like, my goodness, what was it? And he said, the picture that you showed of the decorative teak horse, it's not a horse, it's a mule. And so he really knows his animals, and he would say you could just look at the ears and you can see that it's a mule instead of a horse. So if we have anybody else like him on this line, now you know that we're just saying teak horse, that's what it says on Wayfair, but we know it's a mule.
Yes, the teak mule that you can have in your home for the low price of $28.99.
Oh, how funny.
Another thing, so we were at a conference in Panama, gosh, was it 2 years ago now, Rachel? Mm-hmm. And we were chatting with the brother of one of our teak owners, actually, and he mentioned to us that he builds custom gates. And one of the woods that they use quite frequently is teak. And his gates start at $65,000 for, a fairly simple gate. One of these gates does belong to the actress Anne Hathaway. So she, people like her understand the value of teak, but you can see that, these are things that people do have in their home. They're beautiful. They can withstand the elements. They can be outdoors, and they will last for years and years to come, but it comes with a price tag. And so that's, where you owning teak can see the real value in it. Again, another thing in Tribeca, these lofts, like to highlight the fact that they have teak flooring, $45 million teak loft, or not teak lofts with teak flooring.
A bit more expensive then.
Yeah, so things like that. It is everywhere. If you're willing to pay that price to have it, it's a premium product. And so by owning it, you're receiving that value and knowing that you can continue to receive profits for years to come. Beautiful things like teak furniture are quite prevalent. I know, at least where I am in California right now, it's everywhere. People are sitting outside using it. It's beautiful. It lasts quite a long time.
And didn't your mom help your neighbor Betsy recently?
We actually
teak furniture.
Yes, during quarantine, we actually restored a teak table that had been sitting outside for, years and was covered in moss and looked gray. And now it looks almost like this table here on the screen. So, with a little love, you can have teak pieces for years and years to come. And even if you neglect them for a little while. Another really interesting fact, I think, is this teak chaise lounge chair was pulled out of the wreckage of the Titanic, spiffed up a bit, and there it is looking brand new. Gosh, 100 years later now.
Yep. And that's a really important point to make as well, is that teak has been around for a long, long time. This isn't just something that we is a synthetic material that we put together in a lab and said, all right, here's the latest and greatest trend. It really has been proving itself in the marketplace for over 100 years at this point. And, proof right there being this chaise chair from the Titanic, really quite neat. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Betsy. We're going to jump into the location. So in order for teak to grow properly, it does need to have the right locations. It needs to have that wet season, that dry season, the well-drained alluvial soil. Not going to bore you with all the details here, but this is really important and something that we take into consideration before we buy new land. We do tons of soil samples. We make sure that the weather is what it needs to be, that wet season, dry season. There's flexibility there, but we need at least 3 months of a dry season, which we have found in the locations that we're in. So when you go to Panama, we are located on the east side of the country, about 3.5 hours from Panama City. You can take the Pan American Highway the whole way, so it's a very, very smooth ride. But if you've been to Panama before, chances are you have not been to the Darien as part of a vacation. Maybe you've been out there on one of our tours before, but you tend to find that the Darien really isn't a tourist spot. This is where you tend to find a lot of the agricultural land, because it does have the right soil, it has the right growing conditions for agriculture and timber, specifically teak. When you go out there, you're going to see teak. You'll see the ones growing on the side of the road. You'll see the plantation teak as well, but it just is an optimal location for growing teak. So this is when we bought the land in 1999. As you can see, it was a pasture at that point. And so what we did is we planted 43,000 saplings, and over the years continued to document that the trees were growing. We had the dry seasons that we needed in order for the trees to grow properly. And then in 2013 is really when we started the visits. And we started in 2013 because this is the year that the president of the time, Martinelli, came up with that Friendly Nations decree, where you're able to pair up an investment of $10,000 in land with the ownership of the teak. And so this was a really exciting year for us. And what we realized over time is, people are looking at this from more than just the residency perspective. They understand the value of the wood. They understand the generational wealth concept. And so being able to be an owner, for about $7,000 really made sense for a lot of people. This was one of my favorite groups up here. I think it was one of our most diverse groups from all over the world. We do have teak owners that represent many different countries. We have people from the US and Canada, of course. We have, I think, a couple of people from Mexico, from Holland, from South Africa, from Australia. I mean, there's really a really great group of people that are part of the program today. We have about 400 owners between the two farms, or between the two countries, between Panama and Nicaragua as well. Here was our latest visit in 2020. Earlier this year, we had a great sized group with us as well. But again, you can see we like to have fun on these trips. It's a great way for you to come down, meet other people, meet other like-minded people, I think is really the critical part of it. So you're able to sit on a bus and talk about maybe moving to Panama or investing in other countries. And these are people who have a very similar mindset. So as a quick recap, we have 2 opportunities in Panama available for you now. We have teenage Teak, 15 years old, and then we have newborn Teak, which is 0 years old at this point. But as you can see, they start pretty affordably. For the 15-year-old Teak, which we're going to start seeing profit in the next few years, it starts at below $17,000 plus the titling. And then for the newborn Teak, starts under $7,000 plus the titling there. So really affordable entry. If you'd like more information about how the numbers were projected for the returns, just feel free to send us an email address there at the top of the screen, info@teakhardwoods.com. We'll get those details to you. Info@teakhardwoods.com. But what I would also like to mention is if you're interested in Panama from this general country overview, we did a Panama Country 101 webinar a couple weeks ago, and this is a great way for you just to learn more about the country, the different regions. Maybe you're thinking about moving there or relocating or spending significant time. So that's a great way for you to hear more about the country. And just email us if you like that recording. In the subject line, just put Panama 101 recording, and we'll know what to send you. Again, so 2 opportunities here in Panama. So how you benefit, you own the land and you own the trees. This is really significant to highlight that you own it, This isn't a lease, you get title to your property. In addition to that, if you're looking to ladder the payouts, you can own a newborn parcel, you can own a 15-year-old parcel, and then you have those staggered payouts. In addition to that, the professional management team, and this is really critical for the health of the plantation, is having experienced people who have done this before. So Heo Forestal, they are incredible at what they do. They really are the industry leaders within the region, and they are just top-notch professionals. That's a picture of Jacobo again. He's the one who actually helped us to find the initial farm, our 21-year-old farm, at that point when it was just a pasture. So almost 22, 23 years ago, which is neat to see. He knows the farms like the backside of his hand. It really is unbelievable. And so what we're going to do is, in addition to owning the parcel, there is a really neat benefit, which is the residency side. And Betsy, I know you're going through residency now, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about packaging this together and then what residency entails?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the great benefits of the ownership of Teak is that it does give you that option to apply for the residency for you, for your family. You can really easily add it on with ownership of Teak valued at least $10,000 or more. It does qualify you for the Friendly Nations visa, which is one of the easiest and most affordable residency options really anywhere in the world. For the primary applicant, it's $46.80, which includes your residency fees, the fees to open up a bank account, as well as set up a Panamanian corporation. And then you can really easily add on your spouse or children under 18 or under 25 if they're enrolled in college. Or you can even add your parents on for $1,900 each. So it's a really easy way to get everybody that second residency, give them some options for their future. I don't think I can, oh, there we go. So some of the benefits of having the residency, you can choose to live in Panama full-time, or you can come and go as you please, stay a couple months, go back to wherever for another few months, come back and forth, without having to worry about getting a tourist visa renewed or getting your passport stamped. Another great thing is that this residency is permanent. You have it for life. Once you apply, you've got it. You don't have to go back every year or every 2 years or 5 years like a lot of other residency programs. So there's a lot less hassle. And then if you're not planning to live in Panama right away, you only need to visit 1 day every 6 years to maintain that. Super easy. There's a lot of flights in and out of Panama, so you can, do a quick little layover there in Panama, get your passport stamped, and go back on your way. It does also offer you the ability to work in Panama if you're looking to set up a business or you're planning to move down there and want to find some ways to generate some income. That's a great option that a lot of other visa options don't offer. And then it can also lead to citizenship after 5 years of maintaining that residency. So It definitely comes with a lot of benefits. There are also some other, discount perks that come with being a resident too. But as far as applying for the residency, it's quite easy. You do need to go down to Panama to apply for the residency. I know a lot of people ask, do I have to go down there? Yes, you do need to be there in person. The first trip you would go down, you'd spend about 10 to 12 business days there. You would meet with our residency coordinator, you'd open up your bank account, you would finish setting up your corporation, and you would register with the immigration department. You would receive a temporary residency card. Then about 4 to 6 months later, your application should be approved. You'd come back down to Panama, you'd go back to the immigration department, get your permanent residency card, and then you've got it for life. You just need to maintain it that one day every 6 years. And then if you were interested in doing the citizenship, which, is definitely something to consider, hold on to that residency for at least 5 years, make sure you come down. You definitely want to spend a little bit more time if that's something that you're looking to do, but it is an option, and we can certainly provide you with more information on that down the line. Yeah. And then, so these are just a few of the folks that we've had come down to the farm with us. A lot of great folks from all over the world, Australia, Washington, California, who've gone through the residency process with our residency coordinator. Our residency coordinator in Panama is fantastic. She and her team will make sure that you have everything that you need before you even come down to Panama, so that you can make the most of your time and you can leave there on that first trip with that temporary residency card. So we are happy to answer any questions about the residency. Like I said, Rachel and I have both gone through this process, so we're pretty familiar with it. We've helped, gosh, how many people have we helped get residency? Hundreds at this point. I can't even keep track, from little kids to old grannies and grandpas. So we've seen it all. And why would you choose Panama? There's so many places in the world. Why Panama? Well, one of the reasons is it has so much geographic diversity. You can be in Panama City, which is kind of like being in Miami. You've got the skyscrapers, you've got every fancy restaurant and shopping malls and busy things going on. But then you can drive an hour and you're at the beach and it's quiet and beautiful and lovely, or you can take a 2-hour flight and you're in the mountains where it's springtime climate. A lot of folks looking to retire or relocate really love that highland kind of springtime all year round community that you find in places like Boquete or David. But there's also great, if you're more of a beach person, you can go to Bocas del Toro, or Coronado is another really popular place that's also really close to Panama City. So you're not locked into just one thing in Panama like you are in some countries, which for somebody who's doesn't really know what they want, Panama's a great place to start because you can kind of get a little bit of everything.
Exactly. And what's also neat to mention is that, as Betsy mentioned, you will have to spend time in the country, the 2 weeks when you're going through that residency process. So it's a great time for you to go and explore and check out the rest of the country. Rent a car, it's safe to do so. Fly if you prefer to do that. But there's a lot of different options for you, just depending on what you like and what it is that you're looking for. So thank you, Betsy. That was really informative. As we mentioned, Betsy is going through the residency process now. She had that first step under her belt, so that's done. And if you have any questions about the residency process, feel free to reach out. Or about Panama Teak as well. So we're going to jump into the next part of the presentation here, which is about the Grand Pacifica Teak. So this is located at our Grand Pacifica property. As an organization, we've been located in Nicaragua, initially with our development company since the early 2000s. We're building a really amazing village there by the water. We have about 3.5 miles of beachfront, 2,500 acres of land. And with this, what we realized, and what we had our own owners coming back to us and saying is, we really like the opportunity, but we want more land, or we want to be in another country. What else do you have? So we did a lot of searching around Latin America to really find the right landscape and the right environment for growing the trees. And so we looked in our own backyard. We tested quite a few areas within the 2,500 acres that we had, and we found a perfect location, about 250 acres that we've just allocated for teak. And it's the perfect region for teak. We have the perfect soil there. The climate is ideal. And so this is where our next plantation is. So our first phase, well, actually even before this first phase, we had a pre-phase about 13, 14 years ago, just as a tester to see how the trees were growing. We did not offer that for sale. But then as people were looking for more options and larger parcels or different age teak, we started another phase. So this is what we officially call phase 1. That's now 4 years old. This has since sold out. And so what we did is we allocated more land. So we had a planting last October. Those trees are going to be one next October. And then we just started planting some more trees, which are considered newborn at this point. But for the sake of the presentation, I'm going to refer to them all as newborn at this point. But just know that there's one section of the newborn that's just about 1 year old. So we have quarter-acre parcels. That's the standard across all of our farms, is quarter-acre parcels. With about 150 of those in total, an initial an entry of about $7,000, and then over that 25-year period, it turns into about $94,000. So we do have a nursery on site at Grand Pacifica. We do have a team that is dedicated to just growing the teak, making sure it's growing properly, making sure the underbrush is cleaned out, making sure that the trees are growing straight, and then doing the thinnings periodically as well. That's Ollie. He was one of our interns, and he picked up a teak leaf there, and you can see how quickly it is the trees were growing. The trees, I think, were about 2 at this point, but you can see how quick it is that they're growing. This is from our first phase when the trees were just a few months old at this point, but this is from the one that is now 4 years old. We always encourage people to come down, see their trees, walk out their farm, and really feel comfortable with it. So at Grand Pacifica, we do have the newborn trees, 0 years old, $68.80. This includes the titling fee, $68.80. And these trees have a 25-year harvest cycle. So this is a great option for you to add into your portfolio if you're looking for maybe laddering, or you're looking for that country diversification. Like in Panama, you do get title to the property. This is yours. Actually, Nicaragua is probably is better of the 2 countries if you're looking to title it your land in a trust. And a lot of people are looking to do that from estate practices. They're also looking to use their self-directed IRA. If you're looking to do either of those, invest in a trust or use your self-directed IRA, if you're an American, Nicaragua is the better option for that because Panama does not recognize those 2 entities as being legal owners for ownership. So just bear that in mind. In addition to that, like in Panama, you receive thinning proceeds at year 12, and then we have that professional management team on site whose only job is to make sure the trees are growing properly. And in addition to that, like in Panama, Nicaragua has residency programs, investor residency programs. There are a couple of differences between Panama and Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, you have to invest $30,000 into the land. You can do this through the teak ownership, through any of the properties at Grand Pacifica. But what you'll do is you'll title your parcel in the name of a local company. And then from there, your company will be the owner of the trees or of your lot, and then you're able to get your permanent residency. With this, it's a 5-year residency, which is renewable. You do not need to live in the country, which is different than what it used to be. In the past, you used to have to spend 6 months out of the country, out of the year in the country to maintain your status. But now there is none of that requirement. But do note that you have to spend a little bit of time in Nicaragua as you're going through that residency process. I know Nicaragua is a fairly new country for a lot of people. If you are starting to explore your options, a lot of times we hear in Latin America about Panama, Costa Rica, and Belize. Nicaragua is one of our company's favorites. As mentioned, we've been there for about 20 years at this point. It's a place we feel very comfortable. We've invested millions of dollars, about $15–20 million into the projects that we have there. So we are very invested in it. We believe in it. We believe in the country. But if you're learning more about it and you want to hear more about the country, and I know that we talk about politics, we talk about the safety, all of these things that may be on your mind, do reach out to us for the Nicaragua 101 webinar recording. Like we said, we did one for Panama. We also have one for Nicaragua. This is a really great entry into the country, especially if you have never really considered it before. But we'd like to, of course, talk to you about it and make you feel comfortable with the country as you will be investing there. And then what do? You leave a timeless legacy. You do it for your kids, you do it for your grandkids. And, in my case, I don't have any kids or grandkids, but I really did it for my parents and my siblings. And this is a picture of my parents from the teak farm. I grew up in New York, and definitely our family has the New York mindset, the New York state of mind. Why would you ever need to invest in something outside the stock market? Everything's great. New York has everything. And I really was and still am the black sheep of the family when it came to, all right, I want to live overseas. I want to live in Nicaragua. I did that for a while, lived in Belize, still living in Belize. I'm going to invest in this, do this overseas. And, maybe a lot of you have a very similar sort of experience with your friends and family where you talk to them about something you're doing outside of the country or an investment that you're looking at outside the country, and they think you're a little wild. They think you're a little crazy, and that's okay. That's why we're here, to let you know that you're not, but you are also around like-minded people. But in my case, it took me a few years, but I finally got my parents down to Panama. That is them. They are official tree huggers now. It took them about a year and a half, 2 years after seeing the farm. They came down on one of our field trips after seeing the farm to decide that they wanted to move forward. But, they have kids. They're expecting grandkids from my other siblings. And so it's really exciting for them to really be able to pass down this what they've accumulated over the years and pass it down for future generations. So quickly, we're going to recap your advantages, and then we're going to go through questions and answers. If you have any questions, just type those into the toolbar, the Q&A section. Ivan, thank you for getting a handful of them answered already, but we'll get through the rest of the questions at the end of the presentation here. But to quickly recap, when you're owning Teak, you're really leaving a legacy. You're building a legacy. You're building that generational wealth stewardship. You get title to the property, which a lot of us like. We like knowing that we have that thing to hug, that hard, tangible asset. It's not an idea. It's not a concept. It is a tree that is growing in the ground and continues to grow every single year. In addition to that, if you have a self-directed IRA, if you're from the States, you're able to invest through your self-directed IRA. And then in addition to that, if you have cryptocurrency, you can use your cryptocurrency in both of the locations, in both Nicaragua and also in Panama. And then if you're looking for your plan B, you can obtain residency. And, I have to say over the past 6 months, a lot more people have been looking at residency in Nicaragua. I think that it's a great plan B for many people. Just note that it does not lead as a path to citizenship, but it is a great plan for many people, especially if you're planning to spend any bit of time outside of the country, or if you're just looking to have this insurance plan to put in your back pocket. So we may have heard this before, but the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And of course, all of that time in between, which is what we're doing. We do host regular field trips, obviously, with everything going on. With Corona, we've halted for a little bit. But if you would like to be added to the list, we are scheduling to have tours to both countries, Nicaragua and Panama, in 2021. Let us know. Just email us at info@teakhardwoods.com. We'll add you to the list there, and you'll get the latest field trip dates. But again, this is a great way for you to come down, see the team, see the trees, talk to other like-minded investors, and really feel comfortable with it. And, I know what a lot of people have doing, because it has been such a weird time and haven't really been able to travel, is people are at least owning the Teak now, and then they're preparing all the documents for residency. If that's what you want to do, you can prepare that. And then at the time of going down, the residency coordinator will have all of your paperwork ready, and then you're able to just move right along. So that's an option for you as well. And there's so much information, so I'm going to try to keep it short here. But the other thing I do want to mention is that, let's say you're not sure if you want to go through residency yet. Maybe it's not something you've considered before. Maybe you just don't have the time to go to Panama. That's okay. You're able to start that residency process at any time that's right for you. So let's say it's a year from now, or 2 years, or 3 years from now. Just come back to us, let us know. We'll introduce you to the residency coordinator, and you will be good to go. So we have a couple complimentary resources for you, the Teak white paper, and then also the Panama handbook. If you would like any of these, just email us there, info@teakhardwoods.com, and you just email handbook if you want the Panama handbook, and Precious if you want the Precious Teakwood resource guide. I'll just give you a minute here if you wanted to get those resources. Email handbook or Precious to info@teakhardwoods.com for that Teak white paper or for the Panama handbook. And I'll go in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so I'm going to email you. We're going to email you this comparison chart, but essentially this has all of the information that we just talked about, our 3 different plantations, with all the information on one sheet. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of details. I'm not going to keep this up here because I don't want to confuse you and have your head spin a little bit, but this will come to your inbox. Super easy resource for you to review. And then from there, if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to us. And then last but not least, we'll stop off on this slide here. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's taken the time to join us for the webinar. I know that, you know, it's not always easy to allocate an hour towards personal growth and really towards your future, but I really appreciate those who have done it. And so we do like to reward you. If you decide that you do want to be an owner with us, we are offering $200 off. Each of the parcels, if you decide that you want to own before October, $200 off. And as you can see, the prices there are represented in the green box. In Panama, the closing costs are not included. So you'll see that at the bottom part of the green box is when it includes the titling. In Nicaragua, that is included. The titling fees are included in that parcel. And just as a kind reminder, we do have the Nicaragua parcel, the Nicaragua plantation, that's almost one next month. So there will be a price increase for that. If you're listening to this webinar after October, just bear in mind that the numbers are going to be a little bit different because each year the teak has a birthday. It's literally growing in value, and so it increases in size, increases in value. So just bear that in mind, but talk to us, let us know what your plan is, let us know what you're thinking. There may be one farm that's better suited for you. But again, we're here to help you and guide you through it. So do feel free to reach out. info@teakhardwoods.com is there at the bottom left part of the screen. But what I'll do is I see some more questions coming in. We'll get those answered. And then if anybody has any questions that maybe weren't answered or they want to learn a little bit more about the opportunities, feel free to let us know. Our team is very responsive and happy to help. So I see the question here from Angela. So if you do have questions, again, just type those into the Q&A section and we'll read those out loud and get them answered. And Angela asks, can I buy the trees first and then apply for residency at a later date? Yes, absolutely, Angela. You're certainly able to do that. And I would recommend doing that just so that you're able to claim your parcels, claim the current pricing. And then when you're ready for residency, let us know and we will be able to get that coordinated for you. Oh, this is a really great question from Mark. He says, if I want to sell the land in the future, do I have to sell to ECI or can I sell to anyone? You're able to do both of those. If you want to let us know if you want to sell, we could buy it back from you. Otherwise, we could even help you sell that parcel. I know that we've had a handful of owners who have done that before. Nobody really plans to liquidate before the harvest, but we understand life circumstances, life happens. And we do always have people who are looking for teak of different ages. So we can certainly help you sell that if you would like to do that. Otherwise, if you have a friend or family member that you want to sell to, you're able to do that as well. This is a great part of the question here, Mark. I think it says, long do I have to own the land or trees as if anything happens to my residency if I sell it a year or two after getting your card? Really great question. So you don't have to hold on to the land after you have the residency. So I'm glad that you asked that question. You're able to sell the land at any point after having the residency or getting that residency card. And again, we can help you out with selling, or if you want to sell it on your own, you're able to do that as well. Jose asks, we're interested in Panama at this time. What does Panama recognize when one passes away? Really great question to be able to pass it on to family. Jose, I like the way that you're thinking here. So Panama does not recognize joint right of survivorship. So what that means is if there's two people on the title, then it's still going to have to go to probate to get in the name of that one person who's also joint owner. So what I would recommend is when you go to Panama, I'm going to guess many of you are going to get to Panama at some point, set up a will. And the residency coordinator or titling coordinator are the same person, and she can certainly help you to set up that will. I personally used her. Her name is Annette. She's fantastic. She can do that for you. But what that will does is it helps go make that entire process so much smoother. So really great question, Jose. Jay, I'm glad that you asked because it is a little bit different than it is in the States, as in they don't recognize joint right of survivorship. So you do want to get that will at the end of the day, or you can put it in a company, whether it's that local company that you set up in Panama, or if it's an international company, a foreign company. I do want to mention this quickly. And if you're planning on using a foreign company, a foreign LLC, let's say a Wyoming LLC, for example, or a Belize IBC, in order, and this is for Panama specifically, you need to register that company in Panama to do business. It's an additional $2,250 plus tax. And then you have the ongoing fee of about $600 to make sure that the company's compliant every year in Panama. So just something to bear in mind as you're planning how to structure it. I would recommend owning your Panama title in the name of a Panama corporation or in your personal name. If you're going through residency, you do want it in your personal name. But just something to bear in mind as you're looking at those estate plannings, Jay, and I'm glad you asked. In Nicaragua, you don't have to worry about any of that. You can use a Wyoming LLC or that Belize IBC, and there are no additional fees there. So that's also a big reason why people like Nicaragua, is you can use that trust, you can use that self-directed IRA custodian. It's just a lot easier to navigate through that. Darren, great question. He said, I'm curious about the financing options. So there are a couple of ways that we can finance. One is if you're looking at multiple parcels, then you can pay for one parcel outright and then pay for the other one over a 6-month period in equal installments, 0% interest. Or if you prefer, you can put $5,000 down and then pay the balance in equal installments over a 6-month period, 0% interest. But we do really like to cap it at that 6-month period. No percent interest, 0% interest. So it's pretty easy. I see John Turner's raising his hand quite a bit. John, if you had any specific questions, feel free to type those into the Q&A section. I just want to make sure that we're getting them answered for you since we're going down the line here. But Darren, if you want any more information about the financing options, just reach out to us and we can work through those numbers with you. All right, Sam asks here, when and how does the investment pay out again? Great question. So teak, it's a hardwood, so it really does need that 25-year harvest cycle in order to grow properly. There are payouts that happen at age 12, 18, and 20, and then age 25. That's the big harvest. And at age 12, 18, and 20, what we're doing is a process called thinning. So we're removing the trees that aren't growing as well as the others, and then we sell those to the marketplace. So that's where that profit comes in at age 12, 18, and 20. And if you'd like a breakdown of what those numbers look like at harvest, at each thinning, let us know, Sam. We can get you the business plan depending on what your specific interest is. But if you don't mind, Sam, actually just send us an email right now to info@teakhardwoods.com. You see the 3 options here on the screen. Let us know what you'd like to see the business plan for, and we'd be happy to get that to you. All righty. I see here, Kathy. I see you say yes, please, Kathy. I'm not sure which point that was exactly for, but just let us know what it is you would like to see. Elaine, what we can do is send you over a business plan to see the payouts. For those specific questions, I'm going to say that we refer to the business plan. I can give you the generalities of what those numbers look like, but I know that we want to be specific. And so just send us an email there, Elaine, at info@teakhardwoods.com with, again, that specific plantation that you're looking at, and we can get there. All right, I'm seeing a lot of great questions come in, and I know that we went a little bit over the hours here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just answer a couple more questions, and then if we did not get to your questions, then what I'm going to do is send us an email to info@teakhardwoods.com, and we can get those answered for you. So one of the questions I see here is the dry periods, fire, and all of that. So after age 3, teak is resistant to fire, rot, termites, bugs, fungus, anything that you really consider to be a risk when you're looking at agriculture. So we don't have insurance on the farms. It's really, during ages 0 through 3 that there are extra precautions that are taken. The management team does a fantastic job at making sure those firewalls are up, making sure there's insecticide. So those little things really do make a big difference. But after age 3, it becomes resistant to that, which is also a really big reason why that people like teak. And so the cost, I'm seeing another great question here about the costs involved with the first harvest, what happens after the first harvest and costs. Okay, great question. So there are no capital calls at the times of thinnings or harvests. How ECI makes its money is a percentage, or Hardwoods Limited is a percentage based on the selling price. So let's say we're able to sell the trees for the highest value possible. That's what we're looking for. We get a percentage of that. You'll see that in the business plan as well. But what that really does is it aligns our interest with yours at making sure that we are selling the parcels for as high a bid as possible. And I just did see a couple of questions a few people were asking. I just want to get one more answered for everybody is, why are you selling the trees now when you could hold on to them and harvest it yourself? So really great question. So initially in 2013, when we first decided to open up our first farm at that point to individual investors, the original investor said, we only want to survey up to 75% of the farm because we want to have the rest of the farm for our generational wealth stewardship, for our kids, for our great grandkids. So we decided to stay with that sort of model. So 75% of the farm is sold, 25% is held on by the original investors. And then with that money that is earned, it gets put towards new farms. So being able to give people the options of having different age teak, having those staggered payouts, being able to continue to expand the portfolio, continue to plant new teak every single year. So I'm glad that was asked. That's a really great question as well. There are a lot of really great questions here. So I'm going to make sure that you all have the information here. If you want the projections, feel free to let us know. We're happy to get that over to you. And then in addition to that, Panama is scheduled to reopen October 12th. So if you do want to visit at that point, you are able to. Honestly, I would give these countries a couple weeks or so to really, make sure their new protocols and procedures are smoothened before you get there, so you don't have to wait in lines for a long time. But that would be my best bet, is wait a couple of weeks. Nicaragua never closed its borders, but flights are scheduled to resume. The US-based airlines stopped flying down to the country, but flights are scheduled to resume from US-based airlines within October as well. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody for joining us today. I know that we don't have all of the, we didn't get through all the questions. Just send us an email now, info@teakhardwoods.com. We want to make sure that we get those questions answered for you. Some of these questions were a little bit more specific, so we do want to make sure that we're able to get you the specific details. Betsy, Ivan, thank you so much. Betsy, do you have any final words that you want to share with us?
No, just thank you so much, everybody. And I hope to see some of you guys down at our teak farm for our next tour, and hope to chat with you more about going through the residency process or owning teak.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Betsy. Everybody, thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Look forward to meeting you in person and further chatting. Have a great night. Thank you.